Good morning, everyone. How are we all doing today? Welcome to Right Here, Right Now with the Writer's Block. It's very exciting, and it's really sad to say that this is our last Right Here, Right Now with Bidisha, um, our current writer on the block, which is a real shame because they've been absolutely incredible. And I definitely recommend if you haven't had the opportunity yet to check out the previous sort of Right Here, Right Nows, to check them out now because there's so much, the wealth of amazing knowledge in there. So I definitely check them out. But regardless of the past, this is our present one. This is the one that's happening right now. So hope you're all excited and hope you're ready to go. I'll do a quick little intro about Bidisha, who is on to her sort of final week as the writer on the block. And Bidisha is a broadcaster, a critic, and a journalist, and that she writes for quite a lot of the main UK broadsheets. She's written for The Guardian and The Observer, and she also commentates with a lot of the broadcasting sort of networks with the BBC. We've got both the TV and the radio, and Channel 4 News, CBS, CANN, and then also with Sky News as well. So a wealth of journalistic knowledge. She has a real sort of passion with international human rights and social justice, as well as sort of gender rights and the arts, and offers a lot of art and analysis and critique over that. And her book Asylum and Exile, Hidden Voices of London, was based on her outreach work in the UK prisons, refugees, charities and detention centres. So with such a wealth of amazing knowledge, it's my absolute pleasure to be able to welcome Bidisha to her Right Here, Right Now. And I hope you enjoy yourselves right now. So thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Zach, for that very, very generous and encouraging introduction. We are broadcasting our last session of Right Here, Right Now slots right now. So we have been going through various forms of journalistic writing, and these are half-hour or less short writing prompts and kind of mini tutorials into different forms of writing. So in the first Right Here, Right Now, we looked at investigative pieces and the news, so longer reads and then shorter news items. In the second one, we looked at reviews and columns and the different forms of writing within that. And the third one, I thought that we'd look specifically at feature writing. Now, features are the things that we tend to read on the Sunday morning, the slightly longer, more nuanced, informative, discursive articles. Last night at one of the longer workshop sessions we did, we looked at how to write a pitch. So in a weird way, this follows on from that, how to write a pitch for a feature that you want to write. So I've gathered some notes about how to write a feature. And I think what would be useful perhaps in the next 20 minutes or so is if you sit with a notepad and you think through some of the medium-sized features that you would really like to focus on. What do I mean by medium-sized? Now, in a newspaper, in a magazine, something like that, something text-based, a feature is around 2,000 words, 1,500 to 2,000. It doesn't sound like very much at all, but it's amazing how much material you can cover within that. You can also think of features in terms of radio, podcasts, and TV. So a radio slot, it might be tiny, it might be 10 minutes, but generally speaking, a radio documentary will be half an hour or an hour. If you're working on a magazine program, that means a program with lots of little different bundles of material in there. It's about 5 or 6 minutes. If you're thinking about TV or film, you're again thinking in a half-hour slot or a 1-hour slot. And of course, if your dream is to work for Netflix, who knows, you could have 4 1-hour slots. So think of each one as constituting a feature or a chapter in a story. It's a longer piece of writing than a news story. It's a longer presentation. They come in many, many different kinds, and they're widely used in magazines and online and newspapers and offline. The thing to remember is that you have to cut your coat to fit your cloth. So if you are thinking about radio or podcasts, think about the sound texture, the variation of the sound. No one wants to listen to your voice for an hour across radio. You need to drop in other elements. So interviews, sound effects, by which I just mean background sound, no novelty items. And if it's audio visual, so it's for Netflix, it's for TV, it's for YouTube, you need to vary what people are looking at. This kind of setup with one person just sort of YouTubing a video, this is very exceptional. Generally speaking, you need a lot more texture, variation, diversity, and novelty than that. So immediately on your mind map, write down the kinds of things you're interested in. You can start with the general area: politics, health, sport, food, lifestyle, travel, whatever it might be. But within that, a feature is extremely specific. You should be able to sum it up in 2 or 3 words as per your pitch. A feature is focusing in very sharply on one aspect of something that you're interested in, and you're going into that in greater depth. If you're a working journalist, it always helps to have a kind of page of feature ideas that you're interested in on the go. So it's really just a notebook. Let me show you. This is my working desk. You can't see it, but it's below me right now. This is my working notebook of ideas, and I keep that with me all the time. So if I have something I want to focus on, I quickly jot it down, so that when an editor says, what else are you thinking about at the moment, you can tell them it's not just one thing you have on the go. You look at an ongoing story, or you look at a new story from a sharp angle, and what you're doing in that is a lot of different things. How can you inform your readers or your viewers? What kind of information, data can you impart in a way that serves the lay reader? So what do I mean by the lay reader? Assume that your reader is someone like yourself, intelligent, well-rounded, accomplished, but not a specialist in the particular subject that you are focusing on. So you need to fill in a little bit of walk-in, a little bit of background information. You need to describe where you're at. So let's say you're doing a feature on, I don't know, let's say the restoration of an old cinema in a small village. Describe in adjectives a little bit of the local color, the local scenery. Where are you physically? What does the cinema look like? What is the local community like? Don't write it as a short story, but add in a little bit of local color, a few details. This is not a straight news report. So ask yourself, how can I do that? What are the points of visual interest, character interest, psychological interest? You can allow your voice to come out a little bit more. The tone to take is personable, individual to you, relaxed, capable, but not over casual or sloppy, and not over strict. So that fine balance between being very starchy and academic and just treating it like you're chatting to a friend, somewhere in the middle. And what kind of analysis are you going to include? You can't just write a descriptive piece where you're wandering around town seeing things. So what kind of special insight, what kind of complexity are you introducing to this piece? You can also look at what kind of steps forward are you going to outline. Now, that doesn't mean that you've been asked to come in as an expert or an advisor on a feature, but it does mean that your article doesn't just stop when you finish describing the issue. So in the feature, what kinds of ways forward, signposts, possible options, check back here in 6 weeks' time when the next climate change conference is happening, we'll be looking ahead to September, blah, blah, blah. What kind of signposts out of the issue are you reaching by the end of the feature? So I'm talking here about adding substance to your feature and also adding a bit of form. So you start in one place and you take the reader through a psychological journey through all the people that you meet in the places that you feature. I want to come back to an issue I talked about just now, about avoiding being too academic. What I mean by that is not avoiding being too intelligent, because of course people want your intelligence. Avoid technical language, avoid jargon, avoid specialist phrases that everyone in the field would understand. Now, this is all the more pertinent if you're talking about something to do with science, technology, engineering, or maths, or to do with medicine. It's very easy, if you specialize in this field, to drop into a kind of insider's language and use terms that only people in your field would understand and nobody else would understand. Believe me, you might think that you're being exact, But instead, you're alienating all the people to whom this means nothing and who can't hold all those acronyms in their head at the same time because they're coming to it for the first time. So think about the general educated lay public. And every time you're writing a feature, although intelligence-wise you're not starting from zero, ask yourself if this is going to be illuminating to people who are coming to the issue for the first time ever. And in fact, those are the ideal readers for you because, of course, you don't want to preach to the converted. Excuse me, just going to sort out my bed hair for a second. I wasn't in bed, by the way. I mean, it's just bed hair. It's just describing the style. What you ideally want is to gain new readers. So you want to capture the intention and indeed the respect of someone who's looking through the newspaper, the magazine, Netflix, online for the first time and seeing your article and having their interest piqued simply because of the headline and the way you're telling the story. You want to bring on board those people who are coming to your issue fresh. And so you ask yourself, how can I talk to them, even though they may know absolutely nothing about the backstory of this issue, this topic, this subject, whatever I'm focusing on. So you need to drop in all of the signposts, all the identifying details, all of the background story, all of the context, but in a way that is brief, clear, accurate, and unbiased, and still has nuance. Let's talk a little bit about where you're looking. So in your 2,000 word feature, let's say it's 2,000 words, your editor gives you a word count and you really can't go above or below that. 2,000 words is exactly what they expect and they need to fit into the page, literally fit into the page. The same goes for the documentary that's been commissioned by the editor. 26 minutes has to be 26 minutes exactly. So you need to learn other skills which are not to do with writing. They're to do with editing. So you need to be able to do your draft, and instead of submitting the draft to whoever your boss is or your commissioner is, you need to then sit and cut it down exactly to length without losing any meaning or any content. So you need to be able to have editing skills. How do I tell a story with clarity? How do I never repeat myself even once? How do I cut something down? How do I recognize what is superfluous, what is unnecessary? And how do I keep in what is completely essential? These are skills which you are able to transfer really from lots of other jobs and transfer onto lots of other assignments. And they will be absolutely essential as you develop your career going on. So think about the editing, the form, and the structure. Those are the invisible links, the invisible architecture of your piece. It always helps, I find, to just roughly, I mean, it doesn't need to be on the Word document, to plan out how you're going to do the feature and do what lots of documentary makers do, which is log the arguments. What I mean by log the arguments is, let's say you speak to 10 people and you interview them all with the same 5 questions. All of their answers are going to be different. So you log what they're saying, you log the general points that they're making, and you make sure that no one interviewee replicates what another interviewee is saying. So you carve a path through what everyone says, and each one makes a different point that develops your argument through the feature. That's how you get your readers or your viewers from A to B to C to D, instead of just remaking the same point through different mouthpieces over and over again. So when you're planning your feature, particularly if you're making audio or visual work, try to think about the contributors that you can bring in to bolster the argument and the questions that you can ask to make sure you get the fullest answers. Now, just a quick side note about interviewing people. Generally speaking, 2 hours is the most that you can interview someone for until they get fatigued. That's true in radio, it's true in TV, it's true in films. It's true with actors as well. So think about how many questions you can ask someone and leave space for answers within a 2-hour slot. It's not generally good form to repeatedly go back and interview the same person. So you have to be very skillful in devising questions which are extremely short. No interviewee wants to hear you talk for a long time. Otherwise, they'd just be nodding. Keep it as short as possible, 10 words less. And it needs to be an open question, a leading open question that doesn't just result in a yes or no answer. So in the few minutes that I have left, let me just go into the structure of your feature. First of all, I don't believe that everything needs an introduction the way that you would have it if you write a school essay. So you don't say, in this feature, I'm going to. So when I say introduction, I really mean a lead-in. A lead into your territory. You open the door, you invite people in. You're setting the scene. You're bringing color and detail to it. You can start with a little anecdote, a little description, but you're enticing viewers in the first short paragraph that you have. You may well find, and I see this in writing students all the time, that in the draft, your opening paragraph is really just throat clearing. Sort of a little bit of before you get into it. And that you'll probably end up cutting that in the next draft, in the edit. Your real substance comes in your version of the second paragraph, which then becomes the first paragraph. So let yourself off the hook when it comes to writing the introduction, but do think about how you are leading into your story. In the next paragraph or the next bit of your feature, you are getting right to the heart of what this feature is about. What is it encapsulated? What is it in summary? So that the reader isn't led up and down the garden path. They know what this feature is, why they're watching it, what you're going to do. We're going to be looking into different forms of narcissistic personality disorder. In the next half hour, we'll be looking at symptoms, expressions, and possible treatments. That's an example. By paragraph 2, you're really into why people are here, because remember, you're competing with all the other content in the world. Then you enter the main part of the feature, whether that's radio, TV, film, podcasts, newspapers, magazines. The body of the feature is your argument. That's the steps, the hopscotch steps that I talked about a little bit earlier. That's when you get into the full narrative. One point leads to another point, leads to a bit of fleshing out, leads to a new interviewee, leads to a new example. You're moving the idea onwards with every sentence. And you're cladding it with facts, details, anecdotes, examples, stories. Remember always, people remember stories, but they don't always remember facts and statistics. Given that you've probably spoken to lots of other people, experts, experiencers, testimonies, they're the people who are going to be adding a lot of color to your feature. So don't over-dominate the feature. Keep in as many other voices and other references as you can. You're really telling a story. And so all of the people that you've got involved, it's like having a dinner party or a gathering. They are carrying the weight of the argument so that you don't have to with all of that. You don't have to bear the responsibility of conveying that much information. So everything the interviewees, the contributors are saying adds substance to your argument, your story, or your narrative. Make sure that there's no bit where you suddenly digress into something else or you have to put in a lot of data or statistics. Sprinkle the hard stuff in with the soft stuff. Sprinkle in the local color with the quite sharp points. And remember, this is not an opinion piece. If you want to convey some sort of slant or impression, it has to be implied. Show, don't tell. Let the reader make up their own mind. You don't have to have them thinking as you do or feeling as you do on any particular topic. Instead, you're really showing them the scenery and they can come up with whatever opinion they like or feel that actually they got the balanced two halves of an argument. Maybe the next article after that will seal their real impression, but you don't want to push them towards any one particular conclusion. What you really want to do is suggest, illustrate, demonstrate, and add to their knowledge. You're adding to people's general knowledge. You're creating talking points, really. Okay, we're coming up to the last 5 minutes. So really, in your conclusion, you don't, again, have to have a long essay-style paragraph that somehow reiterates all of your previous points. And in fact, I'm against repetition in features. What you do want to do is simply round it off. Look at future signposting, look at where to look next, come up with a good, sharp quote from one of your contributors. Not a quote from Shakespeare, I mean a deliberate quote that you got that's fresh and original based on your interviews, or a really stark point. Let's say that you are reporting on a murder trial where a person definitely murdered someone, but somehow got away with it. So you say, shockingly, at the end of the trial, person X was found not guilty on all counts. The last shocking line, when your feature has actually laid out all of the evidence, and you just leave it at that. You don't say, this was a travesty, the victim got no justice. All of those things are implied, but you don't impose your viewpoint on the feature because the feature's too long. No one will stick with someone who's yelling at them for 2,000 words or an hour or half an hour of radio. They want to be left to make up their own mind about something. And now, as we come to the last few minutes, think also about how you sell this feature, not how you pitch it, but really what is an outsider going to see when they first look at the feature. So think about a headline. You won't be writing the headline. In a newspaper, that headline and that sort of little slogan bit that goes underneath the headline, those are written by subs or sub-editors. But think about how your article will be headlined. How will it come across? What's going to grab readers? Yesterday, I used the example of writing a feature about top 10 post-pandemic cocktail dresses. Now, obviously, that's not what the headline's going to be. It's going to be snappier than that, more fun than that, and more attention getting. So think about how your feature can be encapsulated into what will really be, 8 words or fewer in a headline. And then the line below the headline will be 1 sentence. So what's the lead down from the headline? What's going to make people read on? Think also about tone. Generally speaking, features are in the casual third person. You can drop in the first person singular. I went to meet so-and-so. I went to Scotland Yard to talk to a police officer. But it's not all about you. So it's obviously written by one particular person, and you can indicate that you went somewhere, you spoke to someone, but it's not a personal article, which is really I, me. That's a very off-putting in a piece, even in a very confessional piece, very personal. Too much of the I and the me is really aggravating to a reader. So no matter how personal it is, always step outside yourself. Think about a personal but a generalized form. Third person singular, if you want to get really technical about it. But generally speaking, I write in the first person. Writing in the past makes something seem a little bit misty and sepia toned. And remember that your feature is split up into sections, paragraph sections, whatever it is, you name it, they'll have a line between them or a gap between them. So think about how each small paragraph, it's much smaller than it is in a school essay. Each small paragraph steps out your article, your argument, your narrative, your story in a new way. So it's like hopping on different steps, going to a destination. Think also about the cladding that goes around the feature. We have 2 minutes left. I keep checking the clock. I'm not ducking up to see if postman's come or not. The cladding, editors call it the furniture. So how is it going to look on the page? What kind of illustrations will be around it? Will it be an illustration that is non-photographic, or will a photo editor have gone into the archives to find something that really fits the piece? Will it be an illustration that adds a layer of irony, or will it be straight illustration of, let's say, this person who's been arrested for murder, and you have their mugshot. So think about the visual language, or if this is radio, the audio language of the piece. Is it going to be very serious, very somber? Will the sound cladding be muted, be very sober? Is it going to be more lively than that? Will there be bits of rustling in the background? Will there be lots of texture, or will it be a very kind of staid, legacy, very classy kind of audio? Will it be a kind of jazzy YouTube video style aesthetic? So like this, we're chatting. It doesn't matter if it's unedited, it doesn't matter if I make mistakes. Or is it going to be prestige cinema, 1 hour of very carefully curated, very muted tones, very expensive looking film or TV? Think a little bit about the aesthetics that are surrounding your feature. And finally, remember that a feature is all about balance. You're balancing opinion with fact, with local color, examples with direction, audio with visual, fact with opinion, context with currency. Sprinkle a little bit of everything in your piece. And now that we're exactly coming up to 10:30, I'm running out of time. The thing I'd say to reiterate, because this isn't mentioned a lot in writing tutorials, is a lot of the skills aren't to do with writing themselves. They're to do with things which are invisible, like editing and structuring, and how solid the thinking is behind your piece. So always think about, how will you edit? What can you cut out? How can you discipline and advance your argument? And that is true whether you are directing a Hollywood movie or you're writing a feature. But today we talked about features. So I hope that was useful for you. I hope you can go on and then plan out and execute the 5 things that you really passionately want to focus on, whether that's for newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, or film. This was the last of my Right Here, Right Now slots. Good luck, and I hope to see your names in the media in the near future. Have a fantastic day of writing and thinking and reading. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Bidisha. That was absolutely amazing. I think, yeah, fascinating. And if that's given you a little bit of a taste of what incredible sort of knowledge you can gain from these Right Here, Right Nows, I will once again say you have to go back and watch the other 2, because they're just as good and they're full of just as much fascinating stuff that is definitely going to help you. If this has given you that little taste with the Writer's Block and what Bidisha is sort of offering over that, do not worry. We still do have opportunities for you to be able to get involved. So this evening at 6 o'clock, I believe, 6 o'clock is the open house, in which this is an opportunity for you to be able to come together with a bunch of other writers as well as Bidisha and be able to share some of your own writing, some of your own work, and get some feedback from each other and from Bidisha herself about your work. And it's a really good opportunity to be able to share in a writing community and get some really valuable feedback. So definitely recommend that. We have our block party on Friday at 5 p.m, which is a great chance to be able to say farewell to the amazing residency that Bidisha has had and be able to hear her own sort of critical response that she's written over the course of this residency. So I definitely recommend checking both of those out, as well as going back and looking at all of Bidisha's previous events, because like I say, they are fascinating and extremely useful. And the only other thing I'd like to say before I let you go off on your way on your Wednesday is our Wow Fest 21 has launched. Just so exciting. Our full festival, full of amazing guests. We've got Jon Snow going. We've got Ken Loach coming. We've got Lady Phil coming. We've got so many names that are been announced, which is so exciting. And I have a little bird that's telling me that I think there's going to be a humongous, massive Wow Fest announcement tomorrow. So keep an eye on our social media, our Facebooks, our Twitters. Just go to Wildfest on there and you'll be able to see what might be happening tomorrow. So I definitely recommend checking that out. But you can get all of the festival, all of the amazing events for only £21 at the moment. It's an early bird sort of offer that ends on the 18th of April. So get it as fast as you can and as quick as you can for a whole full-on month of events. I'm talking almost every day. The whole of May is going to be taken up. So it's absolutely incredible and we can't wait to see you there. So with that amazing spin that I've just been offering, I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. I really hope you enjoy yourselves and we look forward to seeing you again, either on the Writers' Block, at our festival, or any of the stuff that WOW's involved in. So thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.